I'm Phil Rude. I'm an illustrator, comic book artist, and sometimes writer. This past weekend, I was watching the movie 2001: A Space Odyssey, and my wife came in and watched most of the movie with me, and I'm happy to say that she was very impressed with the movie. She was blown away by the visuals. She commented on it several times while we were watching it. She was really wrapped up in the plot, in the minutia that Kubrick kind of puts you through. It didn't lose her at all, and that can be a really challenging movie. And I'm just over the moon, no pun intended, over the monolith that she really geeked out about a movie that I love, that I put up there as sort of a peak of films that I'm intrigued by and that I love and I find fascinating, and I love that she did too. She's not a giant nerd about it generally the way I am, so it was really fun to have her geek out on a similar level about this movie. That's all a sidebar. I'm watching 2001: A Space Odyssey, and as I typed this out for the script, I realized this movie title always reinforces to me how bad I am at spelling the word Odyssey. I misspell it every time. Thankfully, spell check is always here for me, and it says things like, "I think you meant this. Am I right?" And I say, "Yes, that's it. Thank you very much, spell check." And that is what I would call a constructive, useful, and appropriate use of AI. By way of comparison, HAL 9000 is a wildly inappropriate use of artificial intelligence. While it may seem like a good idea to use a quote-unquote thinking computer to operate the endless tasks and technical aspects of a deep space mission, it's really only a matter of time before the computer, trained by playing video chess, I guess, trained by chess to think ahead, starts to realize that it doesn't really need people to move forward with the mission. As a matter of fact, they start to think it would be easier without people at all. And, I mean, if we're being frank, I see how you get there. I don't agree with it, but I see how you get there. This may be kind of an extreme viewpoint and also a bit of a trope at this point. I think it was kind of groundbreaking at the time of 2001. Well, it's a little tropey of, it's Skynet. We've seen it 1,000 times just in the Terminator franchise alone since then. But the main point is that there are valid times and places for AI application. Things like analyzing and categorizing mountains of data in some sort of data processing or scientific lab scenario or something like that. Or in a way of letting me know I spelled Odyssey wrong. Maybe the little paperclip guy from Microsoft Office. That's a good use of AI. Hey, it looks like you're trying to do this. Here's a tip. These are all helpful tasks that are appropriate for a machine that mimics humanity. But where it doesn't belong is in the actual humanities, the arts, the creative communities. And the reason for that is simple. Creativity is human expression. It requires a soul, and art is the end result of a personal feeling or experience being translated into a medium. And it gets there via the process, the work, the thought, the feeling. All of it is super important. And that's why I was very dismayed to learn last week that NaNoWriMo seems to be embracing AI on their platform to a kind of disturbing degree. For those of you who don't know, NaNoWriMo is National Novel Writing Month, and it is a group and a platform that promotes using a tight deadline of 1 month to accomplish a goal of writing a 50,000 word manuscript. It requires a month of hard work, dedication, planning, concentration. I have participated and hit the goal in the past, and it is very rewarding to do so because it's a result of those things. I repeat, it is rewarding to do so because of these things. This is why I think it's borderline tragic to see that they are now allowing AI written manuscripts. I should add here that there is no prize or competition with NaNoWriMo. You're not competing against other writers. It's a personal goal you're trying to hit and a community full of people who are challenging themselves. So the idea that they're allowing AI isn't like someone taking a trophy away from someone else. It's more about defeating the purpose. As I've established in other videos, I love process. So I can't imagine anything less gratifying than the entirety of my process being that I feed a prompt into a machine and then I sign my name on whatever crap it spits back. All for what? So that I could possibly stand up and say, I'm an author, I completed NaNoWriMo, without having done any of the actual work. On top of this, another thing to consider is that NaNoWriMo is sponsored by and has even partnered with AI companies, which, as pointed out to me in the last week, it means the potential of having one's work harvested to feed AI engines is very high. If Meta has taught us anything in the past year, it's that by the time users figure this out, it's probably already been happening for a while. People upload their manuscripts to the NaNoWriMo website, and if they're partnered with an AI engine, it just seems like, oh, they have so much to choose from there. I don't know the particulars of it, to be fair. It just seems like the potential is high, and I personally find that very uncomfortable. In the same way, I stopped uploading art to Meta, to Instagram, to Facebook. It's probably best to stop uploading manuscripts to the NaNoWriMo website. If you find that kind of thing equally uncomfortable as I do. But enough about NaNoWriMo and AI specifically. Look around YouTube, look around the internet. Many people who are much better informed about AI than me and the nano situation. There's content out there talking about this. Maybe I'm being an alarmist, and I'm sure some people think I am. These are just my thoughts based on what I've learned about it in the past week or so. There's plenty of people out there talking about that if you want full videos about NaNoWriMo and AI. I'm talking about that because they're the latest example of the bigger topic I want to talk about, which is creative platforms that end up kind of turning on their user base. And I really think NaNoWriMo is just kind of the latest example of this. Platforms for creatives to come together and meet challenges has been a staple for online artists for as long as the internet has been a thing, I think. But the motivations of these platforms seem to change as time goes on and popularity increases. I know it's a weird hipster viewpoint to say, well, once something becomes popular, it's ruined. It's kind of a shitty blanket statement to make, but I've found that in a lot of cases of social media and challenges like this, and tech in general, it can ring pretty true. NaNoWriMo is one example. If you were around in like 2008 or so, somewhere around there, you got on Facebook and you thought, oh, this is cool. I can reconnect with my high school friends. Fast forward a few years and your parents were on that platform. And then Facebook started selling your information. And then misinformation campaigns happen. And it brings us to today when someone mentions Facebook or Twitter or whatever. The response is always like, oh, what a fucking dumpster fire. Because that's what it's turned into. It went from something fun and cool and community-based and connection-based to this other thing. Facebook, extreme example, admittedly. But NaNoWriMo is an example of that too. It happens on smaller, more focused creative groups and platforms as well. DeviantArt DeviantArt went from being a dedicated site for artists and a social media for artists to network with each other, to show off their portfolios. And then it ended up kind of shilling for NFTs and crypto bros. I deleted my DeviantArt account years ago, and it was basically the first social media account I ever had. I was on there for a long time. But they kind of took a turn towards what's popular and what I feel is like ultimately damaging to art communities in the example of NFTs. And so I don't use DeviantArt anymore. Even things that are sort of hashtag based little movements I've found to be ultimately kind of disappointing. A big one a couple years ago, and I guess still in a lot of ways, a big one was Inktober. This was a challenge during the month of October to ink a drawing every single day, post it to the internet, and post Inktober so that other people doing the challenge could find and see your work. On its face, it was a great idea because it was a personal challenge and kind of a gauntlet to run for artists who wanted to improve their inking skills. There was no prize except for getting better and having a collection of 31 drawings at the end of the month, as well as probably meeting some new people who were also participating. This was the intent of the challenge: community building and artist improvement. It started to get a little weird when online arguments would crop up over whether digital inking was allowed in Inktober, quote unquote allowed. And I look back at heated arguments over analog versus digital art, and I think, how quaint. But at the time, it was something a wild number of people got very heated over. And it took up a lot of space on the internet. It's very strange to think of now. But the real kicker for Inktober came when its creator, Jake Parker, and full disclosure here, I think Jake Parker is an outrageously talented cartoonist. I think he's a really great artist, but I think there's things like this that have been kind of missteps that I'm about to talk about. Jake Parker trademarked he started Inktober as this movement, as this space for everyone, and as a challenge to people who wanted to get better at inking. But at a certain point, Jake Parker trademarked the name Inktober and the logo, which he has the right to do, mind you. I am aware of that. But it seemed a bit in bad faith. The claim from him and his lawyers was that there were people trying to cash in on Inktober who weren't artists or community members, and he was trying to stop that, which may well be true. But the result is something that was created to be and presented as a community for all became proprietary for one man, and that one man could decide what is and isn't worthy of the Inktober name. While it seems good intentioned because he just wanted to stop people from just cashing in on the challenge, what it really came down to is that it wasn't something for everyone anymore. It can't be for everyone when legal action is taken to keep people out of it. It should also be noted, just a side note here, you can decide how relevant this is, that while legal action was taken to keep people who were making cash grabs out, Mr. Parker made official Inktober merch. So make of that what you will. My point is, it left a bad taste in the mouths of quite a few artists, myself included. I've not participated in Inktober in quite a while, and I've not participated in NaNoWriMo for quite a while as well, for various reasons outside of this. Inktober, for me, became slightly irrelevant when I was just inking pages all the time anyway. I was constantly inking. I didn't really see the need to keep going with the challenge that was just adding to a workload. And NaNoWriMo, I essentially have, for my writing, I do it more script-based than manuscript or novel. Occasionally I'll write a short story or something, but yeah, I found that kind of wasn't my forte, and I didn't enjoy that process quite as much. So maybe that colors what my opinions impact is on everybody else. The fact that these aren't really my challenges anymore. You can say I outgrew them or I grew away from them. But regardless of that, I think it is important to talk about how communities change over time, good and bad. These are just a couple of examples. In addition to them, I have been part of Facebook groups, forums, podcast fandoms, and more that have been built on the idea of let's have a group that belongs to everyone, and it's real community-based. And at some point, a lot of them deteriorate into some sort of odd crud. Don't get me wrong, there's still some really great groups and communities out there, and they're still worth being a part of. I'm just saying, in general, I've been very disappointed over some things that claim to be very community-based and then establish some sort of weird hierarchy in them or exclusionary component. I still think it's worth finding groups. I'm not advocating for being some sort of internet loner or some digital Mad Max wandering the barren wastelands of MySpace or Friendster because, quote, that's the last time the internet wasn't toxic. Some grumpy old man about it. My point is, you should find the communities that truly are what they claim to be. Most of the time, in my experience, they are not the biggest or most prominent groups on the internet. I belong to a few amazing Discord groups. I love the fan communities around podcasts like Achewillow. I belong to a couple of art groups where we share what we're working on and we lift each other up and we offer advice and critiques. Writing groups, art communities, they exist in a lot of cities. I know NaNoWriMo exists on a local level in real life in many places, and you can be part of a writers group in there. And that can exist outside of the label of NaNoWriMo. These small, very positive communities exist. And if they don't, you have the option I've advocated for in the past. Start your own. Build the community you want to be a part of. That's going to do it for me this time. Please subscribe to my channel so you never miss a video, and go to philrudeart.com and see what I've got going on over there. You can follow my blog, which posts these videos, plus any other news updates I have going on there. Also this week, I want to shout out my Achewillow friends and tell you to check out their campaign to publish Season 1 of the podcast as a book. Go to achewillow.com/book to find out more about this book and pre-order a copy. Seriously, do it. Otherwise, you're only cheating yourself. Until we meet again, take care of yourselves.